it's just hit after hit. He just keeps walking forward, taking hit.
He is essentially blocking those punches with his face.
Right. This is not right to say, I guess, per se.
But you're going to say it anyway?
I'm going to say it anyways.
Oh, see, yeah, you can't do that anymore.
No. Would you let Floyd Mayweather beat the shit out of you for $85 million?
Probably.
He had to legitimize the sport. He believed it was the perfect sport for the entire world. So she smacks him, he smacks her back.
Winner Derek Lewis. Derek, why'd you take your pants off?
My balls was hot.
I understand.
Today, we're talking about Dana White.
Yeah, he's been getting into some trouble lately.
Do we want to get that out of the way?
Well, let me do like a background really quick.
Okay.
Just go way back to the early days of the UFC. Dana was actually a manager, managing fighters. He kind of comes from a background in boxing. He was managing Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz, and that's kind of how he got into the business, into specifically the UFC. Back even further, back in his high school days in Las Vegas, he first met the Fertitta brothers, Lorenzo and Frank. So their father was very wealthy, founder of Station Casinos in Nevada, and they later went into the family business. In 2001, Dana convinced the brothers, called him up again. He knew him from high school, convinced him to buy the UFC after learning it was losing money. They bought it for $2 million under a holding company called Zuffa, which means fight or scuffle in Italian. But then they burned through another $44 million before they eventually were able to kind of like save the entire company.
Hold up. So they had the money to burn $44 million?
Yeah, these guys had a lot of money.
Well, casino. Yeah.
In 2005, they launched The Ultimate Fighter, the TV show, which turned the company and the sport of mixed martial arts into a truly global consumer phenomenon. Like it was that's like really what exploded the whole thing.
I want to talk about that later.
The exponential growth and profitability eventually led to the sale of the UFC to WME.
William Morris Endeavor bought that?
Yeah. So it's a subsidiary of Endeavor Holdings, which is, WME, IMG, and now the UFC. It's all these acronyms.
Wow.
But they bought it in 2016 for $4 billion. UFC is now valued at over like 9 or 10 billion. Some estimates say.
So when did they buy? When did
2016, they bought it for $4 billion. It's now worth $12 billion. This is a company that's originally bought, by the way, for $2 million, now valued at $12 billion.
That's a great return on investment.
At the time of the sale, Dana owned 9% of the company and made about $360 million. He continues as the president of the UFC, and his total net worth is estimated to be about $500 million.
That's not chump change, man.
No. Quick little just background on the UFC itself, just kind of like what it was like. First fight was in 1993, UFC 1, 30 years ago. It ended up being an 8-man tournament with the winner earning $50,000. At least that's how it was built. I don't know if they actually got their $50K, but
they probably got it in casino credits.
Yeah. So as far as like, regulations that were agreed upon, like how it worked back then, it was considered no holds barred. There were no doping probes. So like there was no testing for any kind of performance enhancing drugs.
Up like crazy.
There was no biting, no eye gouging, no mandatory gloves. You could wear them if you wanted to protect your hands.
So basically Irene wouldn't be able to fight. That's all she does. Fighting, eye gouging.
Oh. She's good at that.
She's good at that.
No judges' scores. That's a big difference. I would say compared to like
right now, that
UFC.
is defining whether or not someone wins a championship is just
So there was no scoring system, and it was unlimited 5-minute rounds with 1 minute rest between. So it was like the only way that the fight would end. It didn't just come to an end.
Did it end in death?
It was either knockout, tap out, or corner stoppage, which is now still. I think now there's 4 ways that it ends. The one we see often is that just the time runs out. You reach the end of the fight. You've reached it's now I think 3 5-minute rounds or 5 5-minute rounds, depending if it's a championship.
They didn't have gloves in UFC 1, right?
Right.
I actually have a video of that. I want to show you at least one of the fights later.
I've seen it, but let's watch it.
Oh, okay. Irene, pull it up. It's UFC. It's under my notes real quick, if you don't mind. I want you to see the intro and just tell me how dope this animation is at the beginning. So
does that mean it's not going to be dope?
I love it. Check out this.
Yeah, I remember this.
Look at this. Oh, it's like Hanna-Barbera, like drawing. Yeah. But look at like the strobe effects of the lights. It's so 1993. But as this plays real quick, skip a couple minutes ahead if you don't mind. Go to the bubble towards the end, right about there, because they just kind of do an intro into it all. Like, look, I mean, it's just bare knuckle. There's no, they're not even in the same weight class, are they? This guy looks like
I don't think they had weight classes.
Right, it's just, it is a no holds bar. It doesn't seem like it's.
Oh, see, you can't do that anymore.
No.
So if you got a knee down, you can't kick a guy in the head if they've got a knee down anymore.
I mean, look, he just busted his face open really bad.
That's why.
The sucky part is that you have so much leverage when they're down like that.
So that's one of the big things that Dana and the Fertitta brothers brought to the UFC when they bought it was rules.
Well, because no way regulation was going to let this on TV.
Right. Well, and that was a big challenge for them, and so that they had to kind of legitimize it as a real sport. It wasn't just brawlers, which is weird because that is part of the branding. Like, you're trying to capture like what is this primal, toe-to-toe human,
visceral, like raw nature.
Yeah, it's like the gladiators.
Yeah.
It's like human beings like
it's
fighting
in
to
the
death
octagon.
kind of thing. Yes.
Well, one of the things that I feel like he did, he understood. Like this. First off, he didn't go to college for this. He barely finished high school.
I don't think they offer.
No. I'm just talking about business.
That's your degree in college, run it.
Yeah, he tried to go to college. He tried to get it, but he was like, it ain't for me. And but everything he did, he started being like, okay, well, how do I market? How do I do business? How do I make a deal? Yeah. And now he's one of the most, like, he's kind of ruthless. He knows what he wants done. I mean, at one point in time, they were spending like $8 million a year because the government considered them a monopoly and they were trying to fight them for a little bit. But I mean, he had to legitimize the sport. He believed it was the perfect sport for the entire world because soccer, cool everywhere else. In America, soccer's great, but like Americans, we just don't care. Football's everything in America. Other countries, nobody really cares. But fighting, my wife loves it. Like people in America.
She loves to fight, or she loves the sport.
She loves to fight.
I would do both if I wasn't too concerned about long-term scarring of my face. Absolutely, I would do it.
And
same here.
She'd practice on my face. She'd be like, you could do with a few more scars. No, I'm kidding.
Right now, she'd just have to whack your face and it would just burn.
So sunburnt, yeah. Well, but no, for real, like he's got a point. There's no real talking. Yes, there's an announcer, but someone in Japan can watch it. They love it. Someone in India can watch it, love it. I mean, it's in guys' nature. It's everybody's nature. Just who's the best of the best. And I think he was right. And when he was saying he's going to be in the top, and look at it now, it's among the top 4. And there's a reason why it's in the top 4 now. And we'll get to that later. Yeah, it has to do with COVID too.
That's a good point though, that you make. I mean, you compare it to most other major sports. You don't see the commingling, like at the Olympics, maybe you see the commingling of nations,
right?
Competing. You don't see that. I mean, and maybe that's just simply because these are American leagues. When you talk about Major League Baseball or National Hockey League, or you talk about Major League Soccer, NFL, NBA, it's very common to see fighters from literally all over the world fighting other fighters from, pick a spot on the map. So like it's a very, very global like phenomenon. I think that, they have people from all over the place.
Well, I look at it like comedians. And this is maybe a weird connection, maybe why Joe Rogan loves it so much, but a comedian versus a band you have to come with maybe 2 tour buses, one for the crew, one for the band. Mm. You have a drummer, 2 guitar players, lead singer, backup singer. Okay, then you got the manager, the tour manager. Then you got the record labels. You got all these people. Then you got the stage hands, setting up at the venue. You got all the people doing the concession. Well, with the comedian, sometimes their flat rate might be the same as the band, but it's one dude. He doesn't bring anything. It shows up with a microphone, grabs it, goes on stage, kills, makes the same amount that maybe a band would make. With UFC, they're still getting some of the views that football is getting. But it's 2 guys fighting for that limited amount of time. It's an octagon with 8 to 10 cameras. Yes, there's a lot going on, but I'm just saying when you talk about streaming it down compared to like football, the cost is so much less. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we can even talk about like why it's so much less, because they're paying people a lot less. But Dana, he knew young what he wanted to do, and he started a gym. And you saw that where the mob basically came to him and was just like, hey, you're in our area, you owe us money. And he ignored them. Long enough, he kept trying to dodge them until they called him one day and was just like, hey, you owe us $2,500 by tomorrow.
It was like the actual mob, right?
It was the actual mob, not kind of mob, the
like
actual
the
mob. And he said, well, what are you going to do if I don't?
Vegas.
He goes, you'll have to find out. And so he hung up the phone and literally called Delta the next call and got out of town.
Went back to Vegas, yeah.
I mean, what would you do?
I wouldn't get mixed up with the mob anyway, but.
Well, in some areas, they just come in and be like, it's protection money, you know? But he ended up going, and like you said, he ended up being a manager for, who was it again?
For Tito and Chuck Liddell and probably others, I guess. I'm not sure. But can you pull up that link that I sent you, Irene? He kind of has this history. So the story you told and what I'm going to show here, he seems to find himself in like uncomfortable and dangerous relationships with people. And
well, he's a rough, but think about it. You have to be a rough dude to pull a sport like this.
Oh yeah.
To the forefront. And
he's always kind of combative with fighters, no pun intended, but like he'll go back and forth with fighters, and he'll insult fighters, he'll insult, you know, critics of the sport. He is not one to back down for sure. No. Can you get a 126, Irene?
Be able to, you know, acclimate to new schools and things like that. Never a problem with any of that. I've always been a fan of fighting. I didn't really get into any other sports.
Did you get into fights?
Yeah. We got into a lot of fights, especially here in Vegas, growing up in Vegas. In Vegas, it was a big school thing. Schools fought different schools like every weekend. It was crazy.
Do you have any your most memorable Vegas fight?
Yeah, these kids came over my house on New Year's Eve, and they were from Valley High School. And a fight broke out in my front yard, and we ended up kicking the out of these guys out in front of my house. And an hour later, the entire Valley High School was in my front yard, ready to kill me and my two friends that were over there. And the police ended up coming, and all the kids left. So then the next night, I'm laying in my bedroom in my house, and my mom knocks on my door, and she goes, hey, would you come out here for a minute? I come out, and every one of those guys are in my house. They're all in my house. What? And I'm looking at my mom like, you let these guys in the house? Shit. And they're in my living room ready to kill me. No, and I learned how to sweet talk. I sweet talked my way out of an ass whooping in my own living room. Whoa.
So like this pattern, it seems like in his life, because I've heard many like stories of that tone from him, where he finds himself in difficult situations and just has to like, you know, he just has to either like sweet talk or leave town or whatever. So he's like no stranger to, you know, controversy and awkward scenarios. So like when it comes to business on a big scale, you're talking millions of dollars and billions of dollars in people's livelihoods and stuff. Like you kind of have to be a savage, and
especially in a business like this.
Yeah. I mean, it's a savage business for sure. Like it's people literally beating the shit out of each other.
He's dealing with casinos. He's dealing with pay-per-view. He's dealing with millions and millions of dollars. Of course, you got to be a savage.
But, you know, again, it doesn't mean he doesn't have feelings, but it's I think having the grit to like set those aside sometimes and focus on accomplishing, you know, what you've set out to do and what your responsibilities are.
He had a vision early on, and he just stuck with it, relentless. It went through multiple, you know, cells. The Fertitta brothers, is that their name? Mm-hmm. Eventually they ended up selling for that $4 billion.
Yeah.
Dana was distraught. He said, he said he locked himself up in a hotel room for a couple of days.
Yeah. Cause he didn't have any say in the matter. Right. They chose to sell it.
I mean, but they invested, $44 million in the, you know, what you said, 2010-ish is by how much they'd invested in them.
Yeah. Cause I mean, again, the amount of growth that's happened in, I guess, the last 30 years of this company, you know, even less than that though. Cause, you know, like I said, it was bought
2001, you say?
2001.
So it's, so
for $2 million.
22 years, it went from $2 million to almost 10. 10 billion?
Somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 billion. Yeah. I mean, it's an estimate.
I think, man, sometimes it's hard to look out 20 years. But if you got that vision and that drive to get it done, I feel like that's something that I love to see the future. But sometimes I have too much ADD and I'm like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? And that's something I've always wanted to hone in just a little bit better, is like, remember the focus, remember why you're here.
Yeah. I'm
Get it done. Stay true to the vision, get it done. Now,
and it's hard.
And I don't know enough about UFC to truly understand what's going on with the pay issue that everybody's having. All I know is that boxers get millions of dollars because of pay-per-view. So they've set it up. If you get to the top, you're in the championship, you're walking away with sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars. But in the UFC, it might be $1 million, it might be $3 million, it might be only $10,000, depending upon your weight class, whatever it is. And it's because these people sign contracts, for 8 fights, X amount of dollars, but they didn't realize how famous they were going to be.
Yeah. But musicians do that too.
All the time. What's your opinion? You've watched it way more than I have. You understand this way more than I do. What's going on with like the pay issue?
Yeah. I mean, so I would say I understand the sport better than I understand the pay, honestly. I don't necessarily want to comment on whether it's good or bad or right or wrong. I've got some data that we can talk through and see what we think. But like here I think is the argument. I did some comparison here. Let me like just rattle off some averages from other leagues.
Okay.
The NFL, the average annual salary for a player is $860,000.
Oh, that's high.
Average for the NBA is $9.6 million.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, the
average?
The league minimum in the NBA is $1 million.
Man, I will go play that bench.
NHL, the average is
keep it warm.
NHL, the average is $3.5 million.
Wow.
With a minimum.
The NHL?
Yeah, National Hockey League.
No offense to people who play hockey. You guys make money?
Hey, they get their teeth knocked out. So.
Okay, then you guys don't make enough money.
Minimum of $750,000. Major League Baseball average is $4.9 million.
What?
Okay, so keep that in mind. The UFC at this point in time, average salary is roughly $150,000.
It's terrible in comparison.
I mean, depending on where they live in the country, it's certainly like a livable wage. But I think, so like, let me just further context. Average individual income in the US is $50,000, 50.
Pre-tax?
Yeah, this is all, I'm sure.
Well,
gross.
then, but can I argue some of that 150 is probably, there's got to be manager fees. There's got to be, what do they call, not boxer fees. What's the gym fees? You got taxes, you got, these people don't usually probably have outside jobs. So
yeah,
they have to.
I look at it almost, so they'll have a contract with the UFC, but they are essentially independent contractors for the UFC. And I look at it a little bit like if you're a fighter, you're your own business. And so, that means if you're Conor McGregor, you can go and make a whole bunch of money with Proper 12 whiskey. You can do all these like side deals, which pro athletes do all the time, like team athletes. But to me,
Conor McGregor left UFC to go boxing. That's where he made most of his money.
Right. A lot of money.
Of money.
Do you know how much?
I know that his biggest win through the UFC was $3 to $5 million for the championship, right?
It was 5.
So $5 million. But how much did he make in boxing?
85 million.
Million?
Yeah.
How many games? How many fights?
It's not a game for one
Sorry.
thing. So this is
how many fights? Excuse me.
So the 5 million was a single payday. That was like a single.
That's a great
championship. Payday. The 85 million was also a single payday.
See,
I think that's when he fought Floyd Mayweather. Did
he win or lose? I didn't.
Shoot, I don't even remember. I think he
lost. Can you look up real quick and see if he?
That was
3 or 4 years ago.
I don't know that I ever actually watched the fight, but I watched all the lead up to it.
But that's what I'm saying though. There's such a discrepancy between that. I mean, I don't know. Is there a discrepancy? And you guys can tell me because I really don't know. Between boxing and UFC, is there more people buying or renting the boxing match?
So I looked into this.
Okay.
If you know anything about boxing, like if you have hands-on experience, if you're a listener.
Yeah, we're just too dumb trying to figure out business.
Like if you actually have engaged in the sport and can weigh in on this, it would actually be really helpful if you put that in the comments. But from what I could find, the average professional boxer is making somewhere around, it seems to vary a lot, but like somewhere around 50K a year.
Really? That low?
Yeah. So people think that boxing like pays so much, and it does if you're the very top tier.
So the top 5%. Do you have the Conor McGregor?
Yeah, I got it. So McGregor lost, and according to this article, as of May 2022, Floyd Mayweather Jr.'s paycheck from his fight against McGregor was the largest in boxing history, totaling $275 million US.
Yeah, so one fight.
For Conor McGregor got that.
No.
Oh wait,
Floyd Mayweather
Mayweather got that, but he won.
He got 200 million for one fight?
275
almost 300 million.
275.
Like that's crazy.
That's good for him.
Good for him. Like good on him.
Good for him.
But
even 85 million for, would you let Floyd Mayweather beat the shit out of you for $85 million?
Probably.
My wife would sit back and applaud watching 85 million. Every tooth lost, she'd be like,
I guess probably, yeah.
However,
yeah.
I would not eat a moldy McDonald's burger. So there's
Yeah.
where
we've
my
been over that
line
before.
goes.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's I think where people have this problem with it. Like, let me look up the biggest UFC payday.
But then again, I don't know. I don't know the workings behind stage. I don't know how much promotion's costing. Like there's so much about this business that's slightly different.
I think it's Conor at 5 million. So I think that was.
I knew of Conor McGregor before I knew of UFC. I just wasn't a part of it. I was so busy, wrapped up in the music industry, wrapped up in film industry. I didn't know much about it. And you had brought it up. You guys were doing jiu-jitsu, but I knew of Conor McGregor just because he's a crazy motherfucker.
So this is cool, by the way. I'm seeing this. Ronda Rousey. Bless you.
me.
You know Ronda Rousey?
That sounds familiar.
So she really brought women's MMA to the forefront, but she's the second highest payday at $3 million. So good for her.
Wow.
That's good. Good for her. Good for the sport. But Conor McGregor, $5 million.
Wow.
He's the highest. And then you got Floyd making
275.
Yeah. So, but here's again, so let's keep looking at numbers because this is in context here. I think is everything. Pro boxers, especially early on in their career, are making like $2,300 a fight. From what I understand, again, correct me if I'm wrong. And they might fight anywhere from 10 to 30 fights per year, which is part of the big variation. When I talk about like what you might do. Yeah, it's a lot to get smashed in the head for like 12 rounds.
My head kind of hurts just thinking about that.
Like 30 fights in a year. That's, what is that?
Like,
more than 3 a month.
Like you've been hit before. Like a lot of people just think, oh, just get up and take another hit. You'll be fine. A lot of people have never been in a fight. A lot of people don't know what it's like to get their bell rung. But like,
the problem with boxing is like,
there's padding. So it's like nothing gets cut.
I've been hit and cut several times, or like damage.
Did you get your jaw broke once or something? What was it?
Yeah, up here.
Yeah.
In my nose.
Someone sucker punched you, didn't they?
I'm good at absorbing shots.
But it's like the traumatic brain.
Exactly. That's the thing.
TBE?
Because with the big gloves, it's basically concussive blows over and over. And people will talk about like the UFC being dangerous and not, fine, like maybe guys are breaking, arms or legs, toes, fingers, and guys are getting knocked out, sure. But they're getting knocked out after like 5, 10, like they get their bell rung and then pretty quick the fight's over.
Right.
Because then they get this the opponent switches on and it's just blow after blow after blow. But it's, I don't know, maybe 10 blows at the most that they get in before the ref is like, okay, they're out. And it's not 10 blows after they're down. So they go lights out pretty quick in the UFC. And also it's not 12 rounds of me hitting you in the head, which is like, that's what they're trying to do. That's the goal in boxing. There's body shots, there's all this other stuff, but like, there's a lot of leg kicks in UFC. There's a lot of jujitsu and groundwork and joint manipulation and stuff. So there's a lot of ways to win that are not just smashing somebody's brain around inside their skull.
I've seen some of them guys in boxing, bro, that it's just like, that the brain inside of their body is mush and they're just standing there and it's just like, it's just pure will.
Yeah.
Or I don't even, it's instinct that are keeping them up. It's like, bro, you need to like lay down. I don't know what's keeping, but so yes.
So that's one of the big things I think here to keep in mind is how often you're actually doing your job. And with UFC fighters at this stage of the game, if you're a top tier fighter, you're only fighting like once or twice a year.
Oh, that little.
Yeah.
So when they're taking home a purse of 10,000, I don't know if is that the right term, a purse?
Yeah, that's what they call it in boxing. Yeah.
10,000 whether you win or lose, if I'm correct, and then 10,000 if you win. That's for like the lower tiered. So you have the option of winning 20,000. But if you're only doing it twice a year, that's not a lot of money.
Well, so lower tiered are usually going to fight more like 3 to 5 times a year.
Okay.
They're fighting more often.
Like 10,000 sounds like a lot of money, but you got a lot of people to pay.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. The team element here is important. So as a UFC fighter, you're essentially a contractor and you're paying for your own camp. So if you're training with people at a gym and you're paying in, like you have your coaches, you have a nutritionist, you're shelling out a lot of money to coaches and to the gym and to
be the peak.
Yeah. And so, whereas like if you're playing on a team and you're getting a big salary, like a team sport, NFL, NBA, whatever, you're going to have like the team gym, you're going to have the team doctor, you're going to have the coaches and the trainers. That's all like part of it. You don't have to pay those people. The team pays for that because the team is a business. Whereas if you're a UFC fighter, you don't necessarily have the team. You're not a commercially marketable team. And I think part of what allows these teams and ultimately these leagues to pay the players, because I believe it's the team that pays the player. I don't think the league is I don't think it's like the NBA paying individual players.
Sure. Yes, you're right. You're right.
The NBA is a collection of like independently owned teams. That's why you have rich guys buying up, buying the Dallas Mavericks. I can't remember who owns them. It's
Mark Cuban.
Oh, is it Mark Cuban?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That's why they stood out to me. But so each team is valued at a certain amount and is run as a business, and you pay as long as you meet the league minimum. But what's interesting to me is there's a ton. I couldn't name a player. I'm not a big basketball guy, but I could not name a player on the Dallas Mavericks, but I know the Dallas Mavericks. And so what's interesting is the team itself is its own entity and it's its own brand and revenue generating entity. Like people will buy, for me growing up, it was the Chicago Bulls, and you knew a lot of the players, but people all the time were buying Bulls hats, Bulls coats, Bulls shirts. The team is able to generate money and operate as a business independent of the actual team members.
Sort of like when LeBron left, who'd he leave to go to the Lakers and everybody freaked out?
Miami, was it? No,
maybe
Cleveland.
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm gonna get raked for that, but I think.
Well, your dad will hate you.
I know. I was thinking they're
just like, I hate him because he left, blah blah blah. But he's a good player, and we're happy.
I
he's
think
on
he
our
left
team.
wasn't it the 76ers? Oh man,
Google that.
Let's cut this part out.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna
leave it so the roasting comments.
Oh
boost.
man, I don't even know.
So,
I try to pay attention to LeBron as little as possible. So,
but I think what I take from a lot of this is it feels like business. You kind of have to fight your way all the way to the top and figure it out. Like a lot of times, people have even said to me, "Oh, that's not a fair deal of maybe payment to somebody." It's like, well, you don't see the investment we just did in this. You don't understand how many work hours has gone into promoting that person, or the multiple things that have flopped before, the cost and such, and that when there is actual payday, you got to pay all that back first, and then recoup your costs, and then pay people out.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if maybe eventually, as the UFC continues to grow, if the team idea will become a possibility, because they already have, fighters have camps, they call them now, which again is essentially kind of your immediate team. It's again your collection of coaches. You might have a boxing coach, you might have a ground fighting or jiu-jitsu coach. Again, you might have the nutritionists and your fitness coach.
So they're grouping resources?
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
But you're not necessarily sharing those. Each one of those guys are also typically independent contractors, but you're paying for those out of your own sort of like fighter LLC or whatever. Whereas again, if you think about what is the purpose of a team in the NBA or Major League Baseball, any like, big league, I think it's kind of overhead. It's to bring together all the resources in one space and in one sort of organization that has a shared mission, a shared culture within the team, a shared accounting structure. But all the members on that team, like I said, can take advantage of the entire coaching staff. They can take advantage of team facilities like, the weight room or a training facility, their practice courts, if it's basketball. Also, that league is paying for marketing and branding and they've got a whole lineup of like blue collar or white collar desk workers essentially that are working on that business again to market it and to sell, all kinds of relationships with like news agencies and people that are working out the lease at the arena. So like there's a lot happening in the business of that team so that these players can just focus on playing their sport. And fighters, for a long time, and I think this still happens as people are getting into, professional fighting, like you're working a day job and then you're going and training at night and working your way into, eventually maybe being able to support yourself on meager fighter salaries because you don't have this like shared overhead type of, thing that you would have in a team sport.
Do you ever remember at a time when they would sell advertisement on their boxers or their fight stuff?
Yeah, they do that.
Apparently it's no longer allowed because of the ESPN deal.
Yeah, you're right. Now that you say that, they've been issued like UFC shorts.
Right.
Yeah.
So apparently
some guys in some leagues, I don't know if they ever did this in UFC. Some guys, it's like painted on their back.
Right. Some guys will tattoo it on.
Yeah.
Like $100,000. I'll throw a tattoo right here. Not right now. I've got too bad of a sunburn, but dude, I didn't even know. That goes to show you when you're trying to figure a way just to make money. This is such a baby sport. People think, well, it's been around for 30 years. It's, 1993, but like how old is baseball? How old is basketball, football? Are some of these 100 years old? Irene, do you mind looking up, seeing how old baseball is?
Because I had this same thought and you're right. Like the UFC is in its infancy. And what's cool about where it is now compared to where it used to be, where you just had these like sort of like barroom brawlers who were,
like the Dukes Up guy.
Yeah. It's moved into a space now where it's on ESPN. Mm-hmm. It is a legitimate sport, like pretty widely accepted by most people. Like it is this is a real, very, and like it truly is highly technical.
Right.
Like you get these fighters that are masters at boxing, masters at jujitsu all at once. They can fight on their feet, fight on the ground.
Because like when they're going up against a guy, it's not like, well, I know he's a good boxer, but it's like, well, is he going to be a good kicker? Is also, he got some trick up his sleeve. I don't know. It's not like you have to prepare for almost every avenue.
Also, can I put him in front of a microphone and have him like, not sound like a doofus?
That one guy, when Joe Rogan goes up to him and says, "How do you feel?" He goes, "My balls is hot."
Derek Lewis,
he took off his pants. Yeah. Why'd you take off your pants? Because my balls was hot. That's someone who got hit in the head too many times.
So Derek Lewis he's
funny.
He's funny. He's a quiet guy. He just is not he does not really seem to ever enjoy being behind the mic.
Well, he was like, Joe Rogan, I'm going to come on your podcast and smoke some weed.
He took a pretty bad loss recently, but
I, though, can relate. Sometimes my balls is hot. And sometimes I don't want to wear pants. So, brother, I relate so much. My balls is hot right now.
Especially right now, being super sunburned.
I'm sorry, I derailed this, but...
Sorry, Irene, go ahead, and then we can come back to this.
Baseball is about 147 years old.
Baseball is the American pastime.
Basketball,
basketball is probably... I looked this up earlier.
But my point is...
Actually, I know it. Hold on,
okay.
I know it. 1946. Is that right?
Oh, now I have to do math. Ugh.
No, I already did the math.
Good,
That's why I know it. So, UFC is 30 years old.
Right.
The
NBA?
The NBA, when it was 30 years old, average player salary was around $100,000. Now, 1976, $100,000 was a lot more than today's 150. But in comparison, so when it was 30 years old, paying 100,000. Now that it's now I have to do math. Well, in like modern day NBA, 9.6 million is average. Mm-hmm. So, let's see, 1976, 30. So it's 50 more years
in its infancy. Like between 93 and 2001, it was literally chaos. It wasn't allowed on television. It was barely allowed in certain states. Am I correct? And who was the politician that wouldn't allow it on TV? McCain, John McCain. It was John McCain.
John McCain. And then I think the New York
Commissioner.
I think it was New York Athletic Commission because they had never been to Madison Square Garden.
Now, isn't New York the last place it was at? Like it was the commissioner didn't let, that was the last state, if I'm correct?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
But go ahead.
Just in case you needed to know, hurling is at least 2,500 years old.
I'll bet you there. Is
do you
that
mean
what
throwing up?
Yeah, it's like that what people do on like Friday nights?
That's that like disc, you grab it and you hurl it.
I know what it is.
Well,
I'm
just in case.
Speaking of hurling, Irene on the way here, no lie, was hurling in the van. I'm driving along, listening to a podcast about Dana White, trying to learn a little bit about business, and I look over, and all I do is I see my pretty wife just face down in the trash going, oh, and I'm like, are you okay? She's like, I ate gluten.
Why'd you do that?
Accident. It was contaminated.
Gluten's a legit like foe in our family. Riker was like, Mommy got the glutens. I told Riker the other day, he's like, can I have that? I was like, it's got gluten. He goes, eh. Hands up and everything. Eh. Like it was some kind of like little
Keep
demon.
it away.
Yeah. Yeah. So
sorry to hear that, Irene.
So how old is football, like professionally in the NFL? My point is, all of this is like, this is kind of a baby. You know, the first 10 years was a kind of a joke. A little bit, like because it just wasn't allowed. They're figuring out the what's happening. And one of the things that was brilliant of Dana White is instead of running from regulations, like in that video of that one guy, what was his name again? The kid who did that video on Dana White?
Gavia, I think.
Yeah. He was saying
Patrick.
Patrick was saying that he went straight towards like regulation. Get it regulated. Let's figure this out. Get the commissioners.
He needed legitimacy.
To.
And he's accomplished that. Like really has accomplished. I mean, you have Olympic level athletes now, whereas before, like I said, you had barroom brawlers. Mm-hmm. You had like in the early days, you had like the Gracies and professionals at their art. Mm-hmm. In a lot of cases, there were a lot of. I think UFC 1 was a lot of kickboxers, and then you had like I said, the Gracies were basically all jiu-jitsu, but Brazilian jiu-jitsu. But again, it was very, very part-time. Where we've moved into the space now with the UFC, and you can see it in the fights, in the physical conditioning and the training of the fighters and everything. Like many of these guys and gals, like this is their full-time job. And what's cool about the modern economy, like the social media economy, is they can earn a lot more through separate endorsement deals through their own social media. So a lot of these folks are promoting, they're influencers essentially in promoting fitness products, supplements, sports nutrition, stuff like that. So,
well, some of them are even YouTubers. Who's that O'Malley guy? What's his name?
Oh yeah. Sean O'Malley.
I think he has a YouTube channel. I think I follow him.
Does he?
He's kind of funny, if I believe.
He's been on that guy is an incredible boxer. He's incredible all around. Like his fight game is awesome.
Like if you looked at him on the street, you would think, but just another guy.
Well, except for that colored hair and all the tattoos.
Well, I'm around that stuff. The music industry, that'd be nothing. I would just think he's just another guy. No one would think.
You'd probably think he's a musician. Yeah.
I would totally think he's a musician. I would think he's probably like a wannabe rapper.
Yeah.
Or like, or like, a singer that also has like hip hop style music, but like, holy hell, that boy can fight.
Like sophisticated fighter. Like he, very high level for sure. It was Sean O'Malley.
Yeah, look at this.
He was the one. Remember the guy, the green haired guy who just got the shit kicked out of him?
Irene, pull that up. Sean O'Malley versus green haired guy. Like I bet I'm serious. It'll probably be that boy.
Sean is SEAN.
Yeah.
I remember that guy's name. It's like Mata.
Yeah, Sean O'Malley's like a legit YouTuber. He's got 602,000 subscribers. 602,000 subscribers. But that's the thing is, it goes back to
Chris Motino. Sorry, Jake.
No, that's just what I'm saying before is like you almost need to have another avenue, another revenue source. He's using what the UFC pays him.
There you go.
I'll pull this up. This poor guy.
Find just like a short clip that looks like maybe it's some combinations. This
guy, holy hell, he can take a hit.
He is like the real life Rocky.
Yeah.
I mean,
why did they stop that fight?
He took more than a hit. He took like 1,000 hits.
Like I started off like rooting for O'Malley, and then I started being like, all right, this guy, I want this guy to win. O'Malley, just lay down, bro. But O'Malley was exhausted.
I know he was not ready for that.
Like it's just hit after hit. He just keeps walking forward, taking hit, boom. That would have knocked out any other man.
He is essentially blocking those punches with his face.
Right. After a while, it's just like he wasn't able to really stop Sean because Sean O'Malley's such a good fighter.
But this,
look at it, boom, boom, boom.
This fight though was like
10 minutes.
It was like a clinic though for Sean O'Malley. So like he got to just tee off and do combination after combination. It wasn't incredibly effective though it would be on most fighters, but like you get to see the skill.
Well, this was this guy's first time to get into UFC ring. If I remember correctly, it was like someone backed out and this guy was like, I'll do it. And it was his first time in. He'd never done professional.
Some serious heart.
Like I was rooting for this guy by the end of the fight.
Not a ton of head movement, but a lot of heart.
Like he just keeps walking forward. It just kept happening. Irene, fast forward towards the very end. You could just, this poor guy's face is basically swollen up like a Oompa Loompa. And it's like, oh, look at the poor kid. And Sean boom. There was what they count like 200 hits to the face.
And they eventually, so Herb Dean just stopped it. He just called it.
And he hugs the guy like, bro, please go lay down. But look, Sean O'Malley's the one that's laid on the floor. Yeah. And the other guy's just standing up, walking around.
He's just rough. You don't often see in the midst of like an exchange where they're still throwing punches where the ref will stop in and call the fight. Cause they're still both in it, but at some point it's like,
well, even Joe Rogan wanted to see, he was like, I kind of wanted to see what was going to happen.
Yeah. But I think I remember also Joe being like, they got to stop this fight.
Yeah. They got to stop this fight. Because was Joe commenting?
Whoever was commentating.
No, he wasn't a commentator on it.
Okay.
That day.
He was doing comedy.
But I just remember watching this and just being like, that guy just won't quit.
Yeah.
But anyways, while we got off track a little bit. So
we're talking about the athleticism in the sport and like Sean O'Malley again being like very skilled.
You were also talking about you have to think outside of the box. Well, they were selling spots on their shorts, painting on their backs and stuff like that. Then with their deal with ESPN, they stopped that. So originally Dana wanted it on ESPN from get-go, day one, but it wasn't a legitimate sport. So he went through Spike TV. It was hugely successful.
Yeah.
Then they go on Fox. Fox was the #1 channel. And
by the way, when The Ultimate Fighter came out on Spike, like that was at the peak of, I would say the peak of like reality TV. So it was like that was like when Survivor was huge. Oh, yeah. I think they had just come out with what's it called? The Amazing Race.
Can you pull up a quick episode of the UFC on Spike? If you can find that.
The Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah, like UFC.
Maybe like episode 1 or something.
Yeah, something like that. But that's brilliant though. They kind of captured that. They got the following. It blew up. Then they eventually got onto Fox. That Fox deal eventually, how many years did it go for? Like 10 or 15 years? It was a while.
Yeah.
But did you find it? Let's see. Dana White UFC Spike TV partnership. Yeah, let's see which one.
Season 10, episode 1.
Here, can we watch another big fight?
Real quick, I just want to kind of preface it to somebody real quick. Something had happened where the lead guy from UFC, or excuse me, from ESPN did not want the UFC on ESPN. He's like, as long as I'm the CEO, as long as I'm running this company, I will not let them on. I don't know what beef it was, if you consider it not legitimate or if boxing didn't want UFC on, because I don't think boxing people in the establishments want any of that to happen because it's taking up their airtime, taking up their, but apparently his Coke dealer was going to rat him out.
Right.
And part of me is like, Dana, did you do that? Dana, did you bribe that Coke dealer to come out and be like, hey, this guy's doing Coke and he won't let us on his thing. But anyways, then a few years later, not only do they let him on ESPN, but they're selling, and right now they got a $1.5 billion 5 or 7 year contract with them. And I want to talk about COVID and what UFC did, because they had an obligation. That was the first year that they were supposed to be on ESPN. They were supposed to do 43 fights, and then the world was shut down. So anyways, let's pull up this other fight you were talking about.
If that's it, the two guys standing there, Irene, that's Forrest Griffin and Stephan Bonner.
Bonner?
Yeah. But these two guys, I remember this fight, and this was the finale of the first Ultimate Fighter, the show. So these two guys were both
fighting. About the reality show?
The reality show.
Is this the one where they both did so good that both got a contract?
They both got a contract. So go ahead and skip ahead, Irene, to I don't know, again, maybe 3/4 of the way through. These guys have been...
So here they have gloves. Yeah. So they're about going towards regulation. I mean, mind you, they're barely gloves.
Well, the UFC had gloves by this point. That was part of all of the Ultimate Fighter shows. But these guys had been just smashing it out for the entire fight. You can see they're both beat up, but they had put on, that's Chuck Liddell, Randy Couture, all of them excited about it. Those were the two coaches actually in the first season. But these guys did an incredible job.
So this is the finale of the reality show. They've been living with each other. They're eliminating every episode. We're eliminating one person.
Yeah.
So that means some of these guys are fighting someone else, even though it might only be a week or so apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Damn.
But the this fight, according to Dana, was really what kind of sealed the deal for the future of the sport, the future of the UFC, the future of the Ultimate Fighter as a show.
Was it a Rocky moment?
Yeah, kind of.
You wanted it to happen. You wanted the UFC to be successful. Holy shit.
It was a moment, I think, where people saw two guys give it their everything in ways that you do not get in other sports. Like when guys are, standing around in Major League Baseball, or they're casually jogging down the court on basketball. I'm not trying to say people don't exert themselves and aren't incredibly talented and super fit, but this was action out of the gate. And it's what people have come to expect from the UFC.
Look at all of them there. Boy, that ear, look, that cauliflower ear, man.
So they surprised these guys. So I think Forrest won it.
Turn it up real quick if you don't mind, Irene.
But they give them both a contract, which is a cool move. That was
Tony Weeks scores the belt, 29-28, and Dalby Shirley
turn up a little bit.
29
on the board.
For the winner by unanimous decision, Forrest.
Oh man.
So keep it playing though, Irene, if you would.
Let's have a big hand for Stephan Bonner. These men are the reason why the UFC has the greatest fighting athletes in the world.
Wow.
Unanimous decision victory to 26-year-old Forrest
26.
Griffin. He is the Ultimate Fighter. What a toe-to-toe.
Look at Dana back there. He's like, oh, we're making so much money off of this.
Well, yeah. So
he knew he had a good thing.
So watch.
Turn it up, please, Irene.
Outstanding, as was Stephan Bonner. Oh, where do you begin in round one? Toe-to-toe they went. Spinning back kick, the high kick, the throws.
They just gave it 110% the whole way through. And
so I'm into this. How many rounds did they make?
Forrest Griffin, remember in the
It was-
semifinals.
Typically, a championship round is five 5-minute rounds. It might have been 3 though.
Reopened that wound. Instead, his nose was just busted up by the relentless attack of Stephan Bonner. We said this fight.
I can tell my wife's adrenaline's running back there. She wants to kick someone's ass. Oops.
Really ever seemed to be a loser in this fight. They continue to come and come and come again. The longer this fight goes, Stephan Bonner said, the more a street brawl it will be. And that is exactly what we had. We had a good old-fashioned street brawl, coast to coast here live. And in round 3, while the pace slowed momentarily, the action picked up as we reached our way towards
Dana knew this early on. It's not just about just how good the fight is. It's about how entertaining it is too.
throwing and delivering.
And these guys, I think that maybe they knew it, just they had to give it all.
Forrest Griffin's an entertaining guy too.
Is that the
That's the guy who won.
These men are the true warriors of the 21st
Forrest Griffin. I read his book, and
Here is
Oh, wait,
UFC
it's-
President Dana White.
here we go.
Oh my God. That is what it's all about right there. Once again, on behalf of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, myself, your coaches, Chuck and Randy, congratulations. We present you with the UFC Light Heavyweight Trophy. You are the Ultimate Fighter. Also, for winning, you get the keys to a brand new 2005 Scion, the newest line of vehicles from
2005?
Toyota.
Look at that.
Dirt bike, which we don't want you to ride, from Alien Motors, and an Audemars PJ watch from the Jewelers of Las Vegas. Congratulations, Forrest Griffin. You are the ultimate.
How is
what
he
do I-
still standing?
What do I do with all this
First
stuff?
off, one more second here. Frank, Lorenzo, and I have gotten together and we've decided there is no loser in this fight. And we're going to offer Stephan Bonner a 6-figure contract with the UFC.
See, that was a cool move.
That's a good move. Because what's cool is that they're getting over both fans, like both sides.
Yeah.
Look, they're both excited for each other too.
What a war.
All right, Doreen, thank you. Wow,
So that fight, like,
that set it in stone.
I
That's
think-
the spike that I was talking about that launched the career.
Yeah.
It's the reality show.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to take from that is like sometimes you just not hop on fads, but you got to see what's going on in the moment. It's sort of like us in YouTube Shorts. We probably would still only have 12 subscribers if we didn't hop on the YouTube Shorts.
Mm-hmm.
It's a new avenue in which people were looking at things. And I mean, obviously, I'm not comparing us against the UFC, but like we do have big goals for Chasing Mountains Media. And so, but they went from Spike to Fox, Fox to ESPN. Once they ratted the guy out for being a coke user, he resigned himself, and then they got the new guy. Which why would they not want to? Like, there's hundreds of millions of dollars being missed out of ESPN not using, But then after that, so let's get to COVID. Unless you have something.
yeah, but I can come back to it.
Okay. I did not know this, and you can fill me in a little bit more on this information. COVID comes around. They had just made their deal with ESPN either the previous year or whatever, so they have obligations, and they want that money because it's like $300 million a year. UFC didn't lay everybody off just yet, but what they did was when they were going to go put it somewhere in like Las Vegas, whatever, people would throw a fit, go call in, get it canceled. So he was like, "Give me an island. I want an island where we can set things up and fight there." And I love that. Thinking outside of the box.
Didn't he end up in Saudi Arabia?
I don't know, 'cause
they
he was-
didn't- like it was like an island in Saudi or off of Saudi Arabia
Because
they
he's
didn't
friends
have
with the
Of course he is.
of course he is. The Saudi family or something like
I
that.
don't know of a lot of like big time Saudi fighters. I could be wrong. I don't know, but
No, I mean, but he's into casinos. Maybe he helped them like set up the fights there in like Abu Dhabi or in
yeah, there's. I do think that I do think UFC events are held in Abu Dhabi. I think.
and then or even in like
Sometimes.
Dubai or stuff like that. But like
yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry.
yeah, I
Dubai.
said Abu Dhabi, yes, Dubai. But I just love that. It's like, well, instead of like, well, that's it, we can't do it. And a lot of people made him the villain for how dare you want to fight? It's just two guys against each other. You can test each other, figure out. And then it was in the middle when people weren't, figuring out, but they had 43 obligations they had to do that year. They were able to end up doing 42.
Yeah.
Which is
crazy.
Impressive.
But like, you can make him the bad guy for that.
Yeah.
But,
can you pull up one of those fights real quick? Just find it. I want you to hear it. Have you heard the fights with no crowds?
Oh yeah. It's really
Pull one of
weird.
those up.
You'll
It's
hear
weird.
like a kick crack against someone's face and
Right.
it's just, there's no crowd reaction.
With researching
you
this,
hear it echo
yes.
in the room.
Gah! You hear the sound of like, oh, that's what it sounds like to get kicked by a 200-pound man.
What's got to be awkward is the fighters have got to be able to hear the announcers then too, because it's like, it's really quiet.
Oh, did you see that horrible right jab to the ball sack? I mean, you could hear them like, oh man, he could have done much better. If you have anything, we could try to find something. Yeah,
But I would just say that, again, when you have, so this sport is in a phase or in a season where we've moved into finally getting like professional fighters that their livelihood can be fighting.
Yeah.
They fight, full time. If we were to shut down the UFC for a couple of years, like what are these guys supposed to do? Like then they can't train at the level that they need to. It'd be like, what if,
sort of like all the rest of us where our careers were shut down.
Well, yeah, I guess.
Trust me, I felt that.
Yeah.
Can you find any of the fighting?
Right at the beginning of uncertain how long I was able to be there in that.
But I'm saying you've built the overall talent level in the sport as a whole to a certain level.
Oh yeah.
You can't, if like during COVID, you lose 30% of that quote workforce and they all go, I don't know, start selling cars or like working in insurance or whatever.
And realize what a steady pay is. They're going to be like,
well, it becomes very difficult then to replace those people. I feel like, you're not going to have that same caliber of athlete.
Sorry, you're right. Can you look up like how silent or UFC with no crowds? We'll figure this out, but like, I love that. Cause like a lot of things that we had to do over COVID that I found out other ways that I could make money that I never had that opportunity to make before because it just wasn't done that way. Mm-hmm. And, this huge best knockout. What's that say? 2020 here. Yeah. Just click on that one if you don't mind, please.
No question anymore, John Andy.
All right, skip ahead if you can.
This is like a highlight reel. Irene, what if you search like a UFC Fight Island?
Yeah. Awful name. By the way, thanks for doing this. We didn't prep you for hardly anything, did we? I've learned a lot about it because we're getting to see in our lifetime something go from like almost like a hobby sport to a legit sport. And that's kind of what happened with football. A bunch of crazy guys running around trying to tackle each other, making up their own leagues.
So let's see if we can just hear this, Irene.
Step inside to throw that spinning back fist.
They're filling it in with music.
Yeah. Hey, that guy's got a sunburn like you, Jake.
No, my sunburn
on his neck.
puts his to shame. No, they're filling it in with music. That's okay. Thank you, Irene. The one that I heard was just like nothing. And you hear them talking. They're here, blah, 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 smack. Oh, wow. But Dana White.
I like your fight sounds.
I watched too much Indiana Jones. What were we going to say before I interrupted you earlier?
Yeah, we'll talk a few more numbers here and then we should probably talk about the professional slap league.
Oh yeah. I thought you were going to talk about his wife.
Well, that's part of the conversation, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But no, so I want to go back to, we're talking about fighters in the UFC fighting a few times a year.
Mm-hmm.
I want to compare that to other leagues.
Okay.
I actually didn't know this about other leagues, but
I was unaware there were other leagues.
Not fighting leagues. That's not what I mean. There are other, there used to be Pride. There's a few. Well, there's now the Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, BKFC.
Really?
Which is becoming bigger too, but like that's a whole other thing. People get,
Should we invest?
I don't know, man. The problem with these sports is it's hard to build. You're never going to have like a LeBron James of fighting because or a Michael Jordan because it's difficult to have the longevity in your career where you can be a reigning champ for, like years or a decade.
You got like a window of a few years.
Yeah. I mean, even Conor McGregor, who was incredible. Like he busted his tibia, like his lower leg. He broke it in half.
I refuse to watch that. Everybody tells me it's just visceral.
Well, it's just like that isn't the nature of the sport. A little bit is like there's a point of diminishing returns because the body does wear out. And sometimes the more loved of a fighter you are, the more punishment you take because people love that you just won't quit. They love that you won't stop. They love that you're, have no fear and are aggressive, but you take a lot of damage that way sometimes. And so it's difficult to like earn in this sport and be relevant in this sport for years and years. And when it comes to like bare knuckle fighting, I think that effect is even more so.
Yeah. So I know almost nothing about the slap thing, the slap league.
Mm-hmm.
Is Dana White involved in this? Because I legitimately don't know.
That's his company. Yeah. I don't know a lot about it either, but let me really quick.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Only a few times a year do people fight in the UFC. In the NFL, per season, every team, every player is going to play 17 games in the season. And that's, I think, preseason games. So if there's playoffs and Super Bowl and all that stuff, that's additional games. In the NBA, they have 82 games per season, every team.
That's a lot.
NHL, 82 games per season. Major League Baseball is 162 games in the season.
What?
Yeah.
I've never, what?
So,
162 in a season?
Yeah.
Wait, how many, what's the season?
Oh, I don't know.
When does it start? Is it made
it's most of the year, I think. I mean,
it'd have to be.
They play you see they're playing in the snow sometimes. They're playing in the heat, in the cold, whatever.
Could you possibly Google and see when the season starts and ends? 162?
MLB season. Yeah. So again, I think important context, UFC fighters are upset. They're training like Olympic athletes.
Sure. Every day. Pretty
much year round. I mean, they coming off of a fight, if they just fight, then, they're going to maybe take a week off or something. But it's not that they aren't working and that the work ethic's not there. But in terms of what are you paid for as a fighter? It's to show up on fight night and to put on your performance. Well, if you're only doing that a few times a year, compared to these other sports, these other athletes who are not getting the shit kicked out of them every single time that they perform, they're just, doing their, the tasks that are part of their sport, but they're doing it over and over and over and over again. They're performing a lot more than you are.
The 162, do you have the seasons?
Approximately 6 months.
So in 6 months,
Whoa.
They do 162. So
that's crazy.
Bing, 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 bing.
Well, a lot of times I think they'll do, you hear double headers with baseball.
Maybe 2 or 3 games in a day, or
so I'm going to get some hate.
Oh, I don't know anything about baseball. I'm sorry, buddy.
Well, I used to wrestle in school, and so
I used to eat donuts in school.
And I did other sports. I did track. I did football briefly in high school, but wrestling, I think is a sport you work really hard. It's kind of like fighting in that it's a short period of time, but you give it everything. Baseball, you give it everything for a very short period of time. It's for the distance from home plate to first. When you hit the ball and you're running.
It's nothing, everything. Your whole career is on the line. In 2 seconds, it's over.
Yeah. Those guys are, especially major league players, they're very strong. They're very well trained.
I know by the time I blink, some of those moves are over and they've all made the decisions and everybody's cheering. I'm like, what just happened?
Yeah. And
that shows the level at which they are.
Yeah. But I mean, in terms of the intensity, I'm just saying there's a reason that you can do double headers in baseball, and they're not doing double headers in the NBA. Although we did.
Can you imagine if that green haired guy got to do a double header?
Oh man, had to fight again. Well, in wrestling, we would do tournaments where you might wrestle 3 times in a day. So maybe my whole analogy doesn't work very well, but
I think you're right though. 106. So I just know so little. I do feel like if you're the heavyweight champion of the world and they're making $180 million off that pay-per-view, they should get paid more than $5 million.
Well, especially the cost.
But it's not my business. So
no, right. But I mean, I think what people look at is like the cost. You see, okay, these people are giving it their everything. And they are, a lot of these guys end up with, cognitive issues. We're seeing now, traumatic brain injury in some cases.
Some get like early onset Alzheimer's.
Yeah. Yeah. Point being that with these other sports, you're in a position to earn a lot of money every season and to do it for a lot of seasons. Mm-hmm. Whereas with fighting, you're given 110%. You're giving a part of yourself that you a lot of times are never going to get back because it will affect you for the rest of your life. And a lot of people just think that that's not enough money to get your head knocked around.
But I think that's where competition's going to be good. And I know that they were being sued by the government for being a monopoly because they were buying everybody up or squeezing them out, making it to where they can't perform in like Vegas or anything like that, or couldn't get aired. So they were kind of playing a little bit dirty, kind of sometimes the stuff you have to do to get, to the top. Not saying I condone it, but if there were more competition and these other leagues could come out and say, we're going to pay X amount per fight, then people are going to go over there. And then to attract the best fighters, then UFC is going to pay more. It works out better in the long run. It's sort of like with the football leagues, teams. Well, they'll pay people a ton of money. Come over here. Come to Jacksonville. Come to Dallas. Whatever it is, there's competition between different teams, and I think that different leagues is actually going to help the UFC. Like I said, I feel like they're in their infancy.
I feel like the city. You talk about Dallas, like that's an interesting point too. I had mentioned how the team aspect is a differentiator between like major league sports or big time professional established sports versus the UFC. These big sports have teams that are a brand and a business. Mm-hmm. Those teams are typically tied to a city. So like I was talking about the Chicago Bulls earlier. The Bulls were like part of the culture of Chicago. And that's also like you have fighters. I would say maybe the closest thing to that would be like fighters out of Brazil. There's like Brazil has a really like a history of
Brazilian
strong
jiu-jitsu.
ground fighters coming out of Brazil. Great fighters in a lot of disciplines, not just ground fighting and jiu-jitsu, but there's not like a team where it's a hub of fighters. I don't know if maybe they'll never get there and maybe there's no reason to ever get there, but I just wonder like what the sport might look like if there were these, something like a team that would collect certain types of fighters in certain places and could handle a lot of the overhead and could negotiate for higher pay and it could ultimately be the one to pay them because they are their own business. So you got a collection of 10 fighters that are a part of,
a team.
Big fist team.
Let's not let you name the team.
Or crooked nose team or whatever.
Cauliflower.
That'd be all the
Cauliflower Carl. Don't let us name it.
Anyway,
we named our podcast Chasing Mountains, and people think we're a hiking channel. No, they don't.
Maybe we will be in Wyoming next week.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk about that?
Nope. We'll keep it a secret. We got something cool coming up with a really cool guy. And who is also into jujitsu.
Yeah, apparently. We just found that out.
Yeah. So we'll tell you about it.
I already said it's Wyoming, so.
We're going to Wyoming, and it's a cowboy. We're going to be hanging out with him for a couple of days and doing a podcast with him and riding some horses.
And we're going to go to Yellowstone.
We're going to go to Yellowstone. Speaking of families, Dana White was slapping around on his.
Oh, yeah, right. I don't know much about that. But
will you pull that video up real quick?
Didn't she hit him first?
Yeah. And I'm going to let Irene speak on that.
Irene, tell us what we're seeing here.
Back it up a little bit. So first off, this is New Year's Eve. They're both wasted. This is TMZ, I believe. They are actually someone filming them in a bar, in a club. Go ahead and push play.
New Year's Eve 2023.
Oh, go ahead and mute that.
UFC president.
Start that all over, Irene. Do you mind? I believe in bold, I put mute this one. So look, they're in a club. He's grabbing her. She's grabbing him. And someone sees it's him, so they're zooming in on it. She seems to be drunk crying. He grabs her. She smacks him. He smacks her back. Someone steps in between them. She smacks him. He smacks her back. She smacks him. She smacks her back. Then a guy steps in between them, puts him off. And then the internet, it got released. TMZ kind of released this as TMZ does.
Nothing good happens after midnight, kids.
No.
Is it midnight? 1
I thought you were
a.m.?
going to say after TMZ shows up, but that.
No joke.
Well,
So
actually,
was I- hey.
TMZ shows up when stuff's just getting good.
Was I on TMZ? Right?
You sure were.
I sure were. Can we find that one day?
Yes.
You were on TMZ?
Yeah, but it was like
Jason Colgate.
Colgate. Yeah, it was Jason Colgate. On that whole story, I think they did a whole thing on it.
They called you that?
Yeah.
Jason Colgate?
We need to do a story on why I was on that one day. Let's just talk about that one day.
Right.
But yeah, so Dana White quickly went on TMZ. I mean, I think I might have that in the link as well, where he was just talking about, obviously, it's not right to be hitting on your wife. He apologized. He's been married to her for 30 years.
Well, hitting on your wife's okay.
Hitting on her.
But hitting her is
hitting
not
her
okay.
is not right.
You don't have the link.
Oh, I don't. Okay. Look up Dana White TMZ interview. But it's not, this is not right to say, I guess, per se.
But you're going to say it
I'm
anyway?
going to say it anyways. Why? I've seen this before. I've been in situations.
Irene, just
No,
cut the
so
cut the
first
feed
off,
right now.
no,
cut it.
No. I'm just saying, there's been several situations in my life where a girl just started smacking on me, and I'm like, "Hey, you need to stop." Smacks me again. "Hey, you need to stop." On the third time, I'll say, "Do that again. I will smack the shit out of you," and they usually stop.
And then Irene stops.
No. Irene's never hit me because God, she's got a good hit. But like at some point in time, it's like, don't come up on me like a man and expect to be treated like a lady. That's my thought. It's
I don't. So
put it this way. Put it this
fine.
way. When I was younger, this one girl came up to me. I don't think I've ever told anybody this. She was like, "I'm going to kiss you." And I'm like, "No, you're not." And she's like, "I am, or I'm going to hit you." I was like, "Well, it looks like you're going to try to hit me." And so she tried to hit me. I said, "You better watch it. I will hit you back." And she swung at me again. It landed. And I was like, "I promise you." She was way bigger than I was, way bigger. And I was about to knock the shit out of her because like at some point in time, 3 times in, you need to stop hitting me. I'm not kissing you. And it's just like, I'm just a young teenage boy. I'm about to defend myself against this 250-pound mama trying to come get a kiss of this guy. So, I mean, at some point in time, people are like, "You never hit a woman." That's a good situation to defend myself. This girl could have bench pressed me.
I think there's
Guess
more
what?
to the story that we need to hear once this show's
Let's
over.
put it this way, she didn't end up kissing me. I ran like a little bitch. That's what happened.
Well, I'm just
saying, like people always, he even came out and said, "There's never a reason to ever hit a girl." I was like, I don't know. There's a couple girls who could clock me. She comes after me and hit me. Now, mind you, this is a rough situation.
Here's the thing. Let me just say, I don't think it matters, guy or girl. I think because to me, that's kind of irrelevant. People shouldn't be hitting each other.
Period.
But if they do, like if you smack somebody, I think you need to be prepared to be smacked back. Like if you get physical with somebody, whether they are a guy or a girl.
Mm-hmm.
Now, arguably, like they're supposed to be in this committed relationship of marriage, which should not ever, just so we're clear, come with physical abuse.
Tell that to my wife, because Lord knows I'm the one getting this shit beat out. I don't get it. She's a wonderful wife.
Yeah, right. Your wife is like your security guard.
Dude, she's my girl.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, anytime if you're gonna, he's quite a bit bigger than her.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, I think he probably could have hit her harder, and I'm glad he didn't. But I just think that, like, if you're gonna smack somebody and you're a girl and you smack a guy first, like,
be prepared.
Be prepared. Like
that's what I'm saying. When I was younger, like this was just a girl who had a crush on me and always was just like cornering me and just talking about how I was going to be her girlfriend. And I guarantee you it wasn't going to happen. And, but like, had I hauled off and just smacked her, I would have been the one that got in trouble.
Yeah.
Because I'm a boy hitting a girl. And back then I mean, you never hit a woman. I'm like, are you sure, guys? Because like she's beating the shit out of these guys. Are you sure we can't hit on her?
Well, what about your daughter and your son?
I mean,
I have a small comment on that.
Okay,
She's
go ahead.
younger.
Sorry.
I am the older sister, and my mom had two, like, we could really get away with almost anything with my mom, but she had two firm rules in the house, and that is you do not cut your own hair, and boys don't hit girls. And those are the only two things we were terrified of her for. And I was relentlessly always wailing on my brother.
You're still relentless with your brother.
Yeah, I know. And he's like a foot and a half taller than me and will still take off running, and we're in our 30s. But like I'd walk up behind him and flick him in the ear. I'd walk up behind him and smack him in the head. And I don't know. I was the sister. And finally at one point my mom looked at my brother and was like, if she's not going to stop, go ahead and hit her back. And he like barely like pushed me in the shoulder, barely. And like I wailed like I was dying. So it's like sometimes as the parent of two kids, I'm watching my daughter who's younger nail her brother. And it's like, buddy, if she's not going to stop, get her.
Yeah. The other day she came at him with like a broom handle, bonked him on the head hard.
Really?
Oh yeah. Hard. And she goes, ha! And I was like, Riker, go get her. He hold up his fist like this, like a little nerd, runs into the kitchen, goes, pop right in the face. She goes, ah! I looked at her, I was like, you just beat him with a broom handle. And all he was doing was playing with his iPad. Like, it was hard, man. But like, I mean, mind you, they're two little bitty babies. Like, first off, I'm not.
Sisters or something else?
Yes. Like, I'm just saying, like, I've been in situations where I've seen girls attack their men and be wailing the victim because he dared to slightly defend himself and push her away. I've seen it, especially working at like the hip hop world. Like, yeah. I'm just saying, like, I think you're right though. If you're smacking on someone, you probably should be prepared to get smacked back. I don't condone what he did. I know he's
good.
He's so embarrassed.
But I don't condone what she did either.
No.
Like, I mean, you know, like I said, nothing good happens after midnight and when you're drunk and you're, you know.
Like, I think he grabbed her arm. She didn't like that, so she smacked him. He smacked her back.
Well, you don't know why she smacked him. I don't know that him just grabbing her arm was for, like,
I have no clue.
I'm going to guess that there probably had been some actions or conversation.
Probably, he's like, I don't really like Taylor Swift. And she's like, I'm a Swiftie, bitch.
Oh, yeah.
You better like Swiftie. Just watch what he said. I mean, he definitely is apologetic.
What happened that night? What happened leading up to
Full
that
screen,
video?
please.
Well, I'm in Cabo, Mexico, for the holidays with my family. And my wife and I were out Saturday night on New Year's Eve. And, unfortunately, that's what happened. I'm one of the guys, you've heard me say for years, there's never, ever an excuse for a guy to put his hands on a woman. And now here I am on TMZ talking about it. But my wife and I have been married for almost 30 years. We've known each other since we were 12 years old. We've obviously been through some shit together, and we've got 3 kids. And, this is one of those situations that's, horrible. I'm embarrassed, but it's also one of those situations that is, right now we're more concerned about our kids. We have 3 kids, and, obviously since the video popped up, we've shown the kids the video, and, we're more focused on our family right now. People are going to have opinions on this, and most of the people's opinions would be right. And especially in my case, you don't put your hands on a woman ever. My wife and I obviously love each other. We've been together for a very long time. We've known each other since we were very little, and this is just one of those unfortunate situations.
You were at a place in Cabo.
No, thank you. I mean, he clearly seems upset. I don't know if he's upset that he got caught. I feel like this is an event that shouldn't have been probably, filmed. He shouldn't have acted that way. She shouldn't have acted that way. It's kind of sad. Because that's something that's now going to go down in his legacy. Is not only is he the badass, but he's also a wife beater.
Yeah, it's definitely not great for him in his personal brand, and not great for his Power Slap League either, which was like in the midst of kind of like launching when that was kind of the irony of the whole thing and why it was like sort of to good not to talk about, I guess. Like, and I hate to say that, but like, you're already releasing launching a controversial new sport where.
Is this a publicity stunt?
People,
by any random chance?
How so? Like
the guy who starts the slap league is having a slap league fight with his wife.
Oh, I thought you were asking if the league itself was a publicity stunt.
No,
I don't know, but that's what I'm saying is like, you couldn't like write better, like paparazzi material.
So what is the slap league? But just literally,
people just stand there and slap a stationary
you gotta pull
human
this
being.
Up. Pull that up, please.
It's pretty gruesome. I don't like watching. Like I don't like watching it.
Is that where I've been seeing like TikToks where people smacking each other and you see like chalk and smoke going off their face? So yeah, okay.
And you talk about the problem with the UFC and with fighting in general, the issues with longevity.
Oh,
of like a fighter.
Oh, these are big dudes.
I know. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Top 5 knockouts. Let's see.
Go and turn this up if you can.
I think it's just.
Oh! Going on one, and he's down.
Oh, it's women as well. Oh, that's a hard hit. Oh.
My God.
Do they have like weight classes? Oh. Is the chalk for just effect or for grip? Okay.
I'm not sure. I don't know what the point is.
The slow-mo. Gosh, I hate recommended stuff at the end.
So I just like, I look at that and like, okay, I know there's some technique to it, fine, but like, it's not the discipline and years of learning and being a practitioner and a true student of something like kickboxing or jiu-jitsu or boxing or, whatever martial art you're bringing into the octagon. These guys are just, they're literally, you're standing there and your head is just this stationary target for someone to slap as hard as they possibly can. Whereas, again, if you're a fighter, you're actively trying to avoid getting cracked in the head. And you're typically, unless you're totally caught off guard, you're usually able to sort of like, with your head movement, like kind of reduce the blow a little bit.
You're just having to stand there.
You just stand there.
Just take it. So I feel like this is the TikTok of fighting. So hear me out. Movies came down to YouTube channels, then eventually it's down to shorts and TikToks.
It's like,
right?
here's the big shot.
It starts off these big boxing fights that might have lasted until you went out. Then it went into, okay, we got 12 rounds or whatever it is for boxing. Then it goes to UFC. And then now it's down to just the smacking. Like it's the TikTok of fighting. Short form content. Smack. Win.
I think your career is going to be a short form content as a professional slapper. Like, how do you last in that business?
I don't know. Have you ever been bitch slapped? Man, that hurts.
It hurts.
I remember when we were kids.
Your hand hurts if you slap hard enough.
Yeah. I remember it's stupid kid stuff when you were young and your buddy's like, hit me as hard as you can.
Yeah.
Where? Right in the stomach. You hit him. The next thing you know, you're smacking each other as hard as you can to see how bad it hurts. Turns out it hurts real bad. Oh, man. All right. So you're a businessman. I am as well. What did we learn? What did we learn from the UFC? Like, obviously don't smack your wife. That's stupid. But like,
don't join the professional slap league.
I don't know. I apologize, everybody, since I know so little about this sport, but like the last 10 or 15 years, I've been focusing on films and music and growing my businesses, let alone, like, I don't have a lot of time. I mean, many times you've invited me over to watch it, but like.
You've come a few times.
Twice in the 11 years I've known you.
All right. So
I've only watched 3 matches in my entire life. Is that what they're called?
Not really.
I'm sorry. Forgive me, I'm a loser.
Okay.
I'm a loser.
It's okay. You've only watched 3 of said matches. So,
but I value though the coming from the nitty gritty, the grind of figuring out the business, slopping it together, him running from the mob to Vegas to figure out how to grow this company. And I feel, man, I don't know what it is, why you see a lot of these CEOs who just don't give up, have this rough, tumultuous childhood where their fathers aren't involved. They never quite feel as loved. You know, yes, their mother, he said his mom loved him, but like you watch interviews of her now, it's like, yes, she loves him, but I don't think she likes him very much, you know?
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate.
But like, there's like this tumultuous, like he talked about how many people were like trying to kill him at his house.
Yeah.
Like I had to worry about a fat chick, trying to kiss me.
I would say though, like, so he's kind of case in point. He's a rough character. He's a rough guy, knows some rough people. He's, well, I mean, clearly, because he's been doing it for years now as the president of the UFC, but like he's the right guy.
Well, he was smart enough to realize I don't need to get into fighting. I need to be the guy that manages them or owns the company that hosts them, because he's a promoter. Basically, he's a promoter.
Right.
Well, I guess what did you take from the whole? How do we apply something to our lives?
I mean, so buying a business for one thing, that is not doing well. I think there's a lot of support out there now for, rather than building something from the ground up, which like the majority of businesses fail in like their first few years or whatever. But supposedly the odds are a lot better if you buy an existing business that is just run really bad, because you can kind of jump ahead, you can skip ahead, and if you become a professional at running businesses and operating businesses and essentially flipping a business, it can be incredibly profitable, because, you know, you can take advantage of, you know, a situation where you buy now this isn't an opportunity available to everybody, but you buy a business for $2 million and, you know, a few decades later, it's valued at, you know, what, 10, 12 billion dollars. Like,
but notice he didn't quit when he said, "Oh, it's for sale." Oh, that sucked. I wish I had the money. No, he went and found his buddy who had the money, and he kind of had the balls to say, "Hey, let's make this happen. How do I get involved? I'll run the place, but you just..."
Yeah. I also learned be friends with rich guys.
It does help.
So you can have money to invest.
It does help. But notice he didn't go run into the bank right off the bat.
Yeah. He probably wouldn't have got a bank loan.
No.
For
some kid who didn't have a degree and they weren't allowed on television, wasn't allowed on ESPN. There was no pay-per-view for it. It didn't exist. He's talking about game rights. It's like, it's 93.
Yeah.
When they started, there were no games. By the time he bought 2001, the games were terrible. And
that's
now
weird.
they're huge.
That's the other thing I guess I would say too, is like, I remember the days of the Ultimate Fighter. I was wrestling in high school, transitioning into wrestling, like club wrestling and martial arts in college in 2005. And that's when like the Ultimate Fighter had just launched in, what was it? 2005. And this stuff was like huge and it was taking off. So like
Ultimate Fighter?
The Ultimate Fighter, the show, was launched in 2005.
So you were into it.
So I was like in the midst of it. Yeah, I was a college student. I was like as fit as I, was ever going to be. I was doing martial arts. I had just come from doing wrestling.
Did you want to do it?
Yeah, actually, but glad I didn't. But
you're too smart. I shouldn't say that they're not smart to do it, but just that much brain damage.
But my point is, I remember what it was like back then. And if you go back, to 2001, when Dana was like in this space and convincing the like his bankroll, his buddies, Lorenzo and Frank to give him money to buy this, like this was uncharted territory. And I guess that's really like what I'm getting at is a lot of these businesses where people create incredible value and crazy wealth for themselves, they're not afraid to get into it. In fact, they actively pursue it when it is still brand new and like uncharted waters. Like now it's hard. My point is it's hard like now to think about a UFC, a world without a UFC. And it's a pretty clear structure to the sport and how things work.
But that all came from Dana. So maybe it's like people should calm down a little bit about the pay, because like he did pull it from nothing.
He created an entire ecosystem of now like jiu-jitsu gyms across the country, across the world. are bigger than they ever were. I think the sport of fighting and our understanding as a society of martial arts, like most people now can watch like old 80s movies, of like, you know, where there's an action scene, a fight scene, and they're like, yeah, it's not very realistic.
Yeah.
Because I know what it looks like when it's realistic because I watch it in the cage, or I've done it at my local jiu-jitsu gym. So, yeah, I just think that's what I would say is like, don't be afraid when there's no answers. Like if no one has gone before you to like answer all your questions and establish the way, then maybe that's like a good path to be going down. You're blazing the trail.
I agree.
So that's what I'd say. That's all I got.
I like it. I think I learned a lot from him in general about just not quitting, like just being a bull and just keep pulling, more like a workhorse. Just stick to the vision and just keep on going.
Yeah.
Adapt as you need to. Same way he adapted with getting it on Spike TV, covering the cost, the way he turned around, got it on Fox, then adapted. He went towards regulation, the way he then turned around and he was relentless about getting it on ESPN, whether or not he helped the Coke dealer come out and say, hey, this guy does Coke, or gets it on ESPN. And then COVID comes around, all the restrictions there. He figures out how to get it done. And it sucks about this situation with his wife, but I'm sure that they'll work it out, hopefully. And I think it's in the infancy. I'm curious what it's going to be like 10, 15. I mean, shoot, when it's 100 and some years old, I think they'll have higher pay. Definitely.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, it's the ecosystem that builds around the sport that I think helps to demand the higher pay.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, yeah, I mean, as consumers, continue to accept it and grow it. Yeah, I think you're right.
And as far as the slap league,
I'd give it that like another year. And I don't know. I think that's a silly
who knows?
investment.
Do you bank against Dana?
I just think
that's what people were saying about him back then. Does he know? Does he know the short attention span of these kids? Does he know it comes down to fight's over, 3 slaps, you're done?
But that's the thing. It's not a fight.
But I agree. That's what they were saying about UFC. That's not a fight. That's a brawl. A fight is with 2 men and they're boxing. It's honorable. Does he see it? And we don't.
We don't have time for me to get into this.
I think he might have something, even though I don't like it. I understand the attention span of people is going away, and maybe he's seeing that.
I have very little attention span, and I don't want to put any of it towards that.
Well, who knows? Irene, would you watch it? Well, yeah. But she's not.
There's nothing to watch. I just feel like there's nothing to watch. It's like
there's nothing in that gives me that like, oh, I'm envious. I want to be as good as that person. It's like, oh, that person just like, it's like a sucker punch. It's like, no, that doesn't count.
But do we watch TikTok and understand all that? Like, why can kids no longer watch movies? Why can't they watch long form stuff? Do you see channels that used to get 10 or 15 million views per channel and they're getting hundreds of thousands? And now they're putting all their energy towards shorts because nobody has long attention spans. Maybe he's thinking ahead of us. That fights are just going to be 1, 2, over.
Yeah, but
I'm with you. I agree. I'm just saying, are we old fuddy-duddies and he's somehow ahead of the game? I'll cut this whole section if you think I'm an idiot, but I think he might just...
No, I don't think you're an idiot. I mean, no, I don't think you're an idiot at all. I just like...
I'm with you. I agree with you. But history has shown you don't kind of like bet against Dana White.
But where does that sport go? That's the thing. You could look at... I think what Dana saw...
It goes to exactly where it's at. TikToks. It's on... that's how I saw it. TikToks.
No,
back and forth, and then it's brand advertisement.
I mean, how do you evolve the sport is what I mean. Like Dana in 2001 looked at the UFC and said, there's something here. Like these guys, again, what I described, you've got people who are talented, who are tough, but are not provided really with an opportunity to put their whole selves into being a developed fighter. And also the league didn't have like the financial support. It didn't have, but like all it needed was better fighters, more technical fighters. Part of what really the appeal of the original UFC was it was the age old argument of like, which martial art is better? like how would a wrestler fare against a boxer? How would a kickboxer fare against somebody doing jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai? And you could see those comparisons happen in the ring. Nowadays, kind of everybody does a little bit more of a blended MMA style fighting. But the point is, like, people were bringing different skill sets and interesting
I'm with you.
Things to the table. There's not like,
I'm just saying, don't bet against Dana White.
What are you going to do? You're going to be like, oh, I'm going to start slapping the way they're doing down in Brazil. Over in the
he's
UK.
cheating. He's using the thick chalk. Like, oh, how dare you? That's a technical foul. He went below the nose instead of above. I don't know. Let's end this podcast with the guy who says, my balls is hot. Could you please pull that up? Derek Lewis interview with Joe Rogan. And that's just going to take our podcast out with wise words from Derek Lewis.
Irene's just going to search my balls is hot. While she's pulling that up, we've probably said a lot of controversial stuff during this show. No, I mean, like, as far as, different martial arts or thoughts on the UFC, thoughts on other sports, thoughts on fighter pay. If you guys have any comments, any thoughts, any experience with this in your lives, let us know. Put it in the comments below.
And I apologize for every term I've said wrong. I
matches.
Matches. And I called it a purse.
I think that's what they call it.
I don't know. Look, it's something I actually truly want to learn about. I love it. I thought about taking that word.
What was it?
Jiu-jitsu. Yes. I've thought about taking martial arts.
You should take ninjutsu.
Ninjutsu?
The art of the ninja.
They wouldn't let me in the door. Irene, go ahead and push play on this, please. Full screen that. Give me some audio.
I'm here with the winner, Derek Lewis. Derek, why'd you take your pants off?
My balls was hot.
I understand.
What the fuck? Joe just knows. I understand. I get it. Turn that up, please. Just a little bit louder, Irene, on the mixer.
Joe's balls is hot, too.
The winner, Derek Lewis. Derek, why'd you take your pants off?
My balls was hot.
I understand.
Keep it playing.
Listen, man, what you just did was absolutely phenomenal. That was an incredible comeback victory, and it shows one of the reasons why people love to watch you fight, that you can put it all to bed with one shot.
I told them boys, I got nothing but heart. They keep underestimating me. I ain't all that technical and all that, but I'm getting there.
No one will question your heart, sir, after this. This is a come-from-behind knockout, the likes that we haven't seen in a long time. And you were looking for that big haymaker all night. You found it in the last minute of the fight.
I forgot a few hours before the fight, Donald Trump called me and told me I got to knock this Russian out. They're making him look bad on the news. Him and Putin. They're talking about USA in this hole.
Listen, Derek, you came into this fight the #2 contender with that knockout. You're absolutely one of the top guys in line.
Look at Joe. He's trying to keep himself from laughing.
So tell us what you think about that.
I need to sit my black ass down and do some more cardio. What you talking about right now? I ain't trying to fight for no title right now. I'm no gas tank like that.
Listen, Derek, you're one of the most entertaining guys in the sport. Congratulations on an amazing victory. And thank you very much for a really, really entertaining fight.
Thanks for having me.
That's hilarious. I mean, that's it. That's the Chasing Mountains podcast. Thanks for watching. We're learning every single day. We got something special coming up in the next few weeks with a very cool guy, a fellow YouTuber. We'll tell you guys, everyone, just a little bit more information. Take us out.
My balls is hot.
Peace out.
The thoughts and opinions on this show do not reflect those of our advertisers, employers, or other affiliates. The content should not be considered legal or financial advice. The Chasing Mountains podcast is a production of Chasing Mountains Media.